Hey guys, welcome back to the Trademark Sports YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking all things signings, about one player that every single club should be signing heading into, not this season because the NRL is a little bit stupid, but 2026 and beyond. Maybe these guys can get an early release and whatnot and contribute to the team, but let's have a look at what we think the holes are at the moment in the squads for each club and a player that can fill that role. Just before I start as well, I just want to preface that I'm trying to have it so that I only talk about one player once for one club. Otherwise, every club's getting so on Cowboys and Containing stats because they're the two high profile guys off contract. Starting off with the Brisbane Broncos, and the guy that I've got for them is, like, when I look at their squad, right, they've got a very, very good squad all around. I think maybe the only real gap I can see is maybe them bringing another like star second rower, and I'm sure being the Brisbane Broncos, they've got a rookie coming through who's just an absolute gun. But a guy that he's off contract. I don't know whether you'd really be able to get him out of this club. The guy that I had a look at around that I could see sort of fitting in with the Broncos. I don't know whether he'd actually leave his club, as I said, but it's going to be Egan Butcher. I think he's sort of shown at the Roosters that he's got some pretty starboy potential there. I don't know the direction. The Roosters might be changing direction a little bit, but I can't really see them getting rid of one of their like three actual juniors. And I feel like Egan Butcher is very tied to the Roosters, especially while Nat Butcher's there as well. But I think he'd be a very, very good acquisition for the Broncos. I think he's a great player. Probably has rep footy potential. I think he's still only like 23, 24. So he's still got a long way to go in terms of like his football ability and reaching his ceiling. But yeah, Egan Butcher for me is a very underrated player throughout the comp. And I think he's that kind of hardworking, tenacious kind of player that the Broncos would really benefit from having on their roster. Then we go to the Canberra Raiders. Again, looking at this squad, I know like their spine is the glaring issue they have there, but they've got a lot of good young players coming through. Chevy Stewart as the fullback, or Kyle Weeks as well, who can play fullback and halfback. And you got Ethan Strange as your 6, Ethan Sanders as your long-term 7, looking likely, or Kyle Weeks. The 9 is the issue. Like Tom Starling, good option off the bench. Danny Levi is a solid player. I think there's definitely room for improvement there, respectfully to him. And I know they got a guy coming through called Owen Paddy, who's got like massive reps and everything. He played New South Wales Cup at like 18, whatever, like pretty good. Probably still a couple years off being that full-time first grader though. And here's a guy that seemingly has been on the outer. Like one report says he's on the outer, another report says the club want him, the club love him, he's a club captain kind of thing. But this guy that I've got for the Canberra Raiders, Jaden Brayley. I think he's still got a lot to offer for an NRL club. He's only like 29. I know he's had a very, very extensive run with injuries, and that is something that, like, if you're a club, you look at it and go, right, he's 29, had a lot of injuries. Can we be sure he's going to get 3 or 4 years of first grade out of him? But in the similar vein, that's like he's had what, 2 ACLs, I believe, and an Achilles. That's essentially 3 seasons off of contact he's had on the rest of his body. So he's going to be a fresher 29-year-old, if that makes sense, in terms of like he just hasn't had 3 seasons of first grade football in the middle defending against 120-kilo front rowers. So shoulder's going to be good. But yeah, I think Jaden Brayley, like, you could probably pick him up on the cheap and probably get nice to contribute some of his salary as well. I think it'd be a bit of a win-win for the Canberra Raiders, if I'm completely honest. Then we go to the Bulldogs. Now, the one glaring issue from 2024 to 2025 and beyond was they needed another front rower. That's all they needed, pretty much, was a bit of extra punch through the middle. And they've gone to sign Leo Thompson for 2026 and beyond. So, I look at this squad, and I think, realistically, with the players that are available on the market, where do they purchase someone that they're going to improve? And I look at it, and I think they've got a very, very, very well-rounded squad. And honestly, even like people saying they need a better fullback, Connor Tracy was fantastic for them. And we've seen that with a full year of first grade, how good he can be. He didn't even have a preseason at fullback. So now he's got a preseason at fullback. He's going to be even better. I genuinely don't know who they can sign that would take them from where they are to the next level, without completely blowing up the salary cap and their systems and their structure. Like, I think everyone they've recruited this season has been fantastic for their squad. Honestly, with the available players, I got nothing for them. Call it a cop-out, whatever, but that's just my opinion. Then we go over to the Cronulla Sharks, who, again, their biggest issue was they needed some more punch to the middle. They brought in Adam Van-Blake. I think, like, with the current squad they've got, I think this season's pretty make or break. in terms of whether they can like go and push on to make a grand final appearance, win a comp, that sort of thing. I think with the way their players are tied up, that sort of thing, I feel like their main priority at the moment is just re-signing all their players that they have, which have done quite well. They've re-signed Britton Nicola as well as Cameron McInnes. And I think they're looking like they could get some role players and that sort of thing just to like bump up their depth, but they've got their reserve grades making the grand final every other year. Like they've got really good depth. They've got the Purdue boys coming through as well, who are like 22, 23 and look really, really good. Got a couple of good youngsters coming through as well. Like their reserve grade made, not reserve grade, their flag as well made the grand final too. So they got some pretty good stocks coming through there. Even like guys like Michael Gabriel and stuff. Like, yeah, they'll be sweet for a while. What I've pinned for the Sharkies is getting like another big, massive marquee signing for 2026, like at the 2026 season. David Fafita, I don't like. Yes, it's gonna be very tough to be able to match his salary, but I feel like we've already seen he's open to moving down to Sydney. He's open to leaving the Gold Coast Titans. Like he was out the door last year, so I do think that there's a pretty good chance they can get him out of the Gold Coast, and like I can just say, look, we've got a better chance of winning the comp than the Titans, and they're not wrong. Then we go over to the Dolphins. Now, halves stocks are very limited around the comp at the moment in terms of players that are available, especially like the top level halves. Because that's the issue I see with the Dolphins at the moment. Isaiah Katoa, fantastic, going to be one of the best halves in the comp. In maybe like honestly like 2 years, he might be the best halfback in the comp, other than Nathan Cleary. But they don't really have anyone to pair him with. And there's a guy who's quite versatile, can play a number of positions if you've got injuries and whatnot. And he's available. Well, I say he's available. You probably will be able to get him out of his current club. That's Blake Taff. I think he'd do a fantastic job. He was a 7 coming like through the grades the whole time. We've seen him also play the foil as a 6, so you can like just sort of see what works best with Isaiah Katoa, whether Katoa's like going to be better as that ball dominant half. But yeah, I feel like Blake Taff is that kind of guy. Like they just need like I don't know, Nick Aram was a quality player, but it hasn't worked so far. They've had 2 shots with it, hasn't worked so far. Something's going to change. I think you'd be able to get Blake Taff now. If you went to the Bulldogs and said, hey, we want to take him, you want to offer him this now? They're probably like, yeah, he's probably not going to get a run in our team, so off you go. Then we've got the Gold Coast Titans now. I think like you're looking at the squad, their full pack's pretty insane. They've got a million halves options. I think the outside backs is the one area that you could see them like for improvement, just like adding a bit more punch, a bit more star power. So I've got one of them, someone coming down just from Brizzy, and that's them either landing Katoni Staggs or Selwyn Cobbo. Now I don't know how the money would work. I think they'd be more likely to get Katoni Staggs, just because obviously Selwyn Cobbo is younger, has more versatility, can play more positions, that sort of thing. I feel like Katoni Staggs is the guy that they might be able to land, and I think he'd be great for the Gold Coast Titans. It can be a little bit hot and cold, but I feel like Desi Hazard probably would be able to get the best out of him. I think we'll see that as well with Madge this year, and they're pretty similar coaches in terms of like their coaching style and structure. So I do think we'll see like I think either Katoni Staggs or Selwyn Cobbo will leave. Just because they have to, just because it's a salary cap squeeze. Like they're not going to be able to be signed for $200K a year. So yeah, I feel like Katoni Staggs for the Gold Coast Titans would be a pretty fun watch. Gives me like James Roberts vibes. Then we go to Manly, who's another club who I feel like honestly throughout the whole comp we're lacking front rowers and second rowers. Like they've obviously got Oloapu on one edge. They just need another strike second rower, and they could go close to winning a comp. I've got a guy who is off contract, hasn't really come out and said that he wants to stay in Newcastle. And that's Kai Pearce-Paul. I think, like, looking at his career trajectory, he's going to develop into an absolute stud. Like, the more he played last year, the better he got. He's got a killer offload. He's got a massive frame. He can bulk up a bit. He's going to be so destructive on an edge. Like, imagine Oloapu on one side, Kai Pearce-Paul on the other side with a star-studded outside backs. Like, pretty good punch to the middle. Manly will be a force to be reckoned with for a few years, and that's just say the least anyway. Then we go over to the Melbourne Storm, who again, who do they sign to get better? They identified a hole in their squad, which was a front rower. They went and got Stefano. I don't see who can make the Storm better out of the available players. Just, yeah, Storm or Storm. Now we're going to talk about the Newcastle Knights, who they've obviously lost Leo Thompson, and their middles are probably their biggest problem, I'd say, at the moment. Got good outside backs. Their halves, there's no one available there to push them to the next level because they've got like 5 of like halves that are like the exact same kind of level. I guess like none of them really stand out as better than the other, and there's no halves on the market that I really see them like pushing above that. We've got a guy coming over from South who I actually honestly cannot believe hasn't been re-signed just yet. It's David Mawali. I think he's getting better year after year. Debuted quite young for a front rower, and had massive raps on him, and it's sort of been slow progress because he's a front rower. Like there's a lot of difference, like being an 18-year-old playing against 18-year-olds to playing against men, no matter what position you're playing, let alone in the middle against these massive, hard, like just seasoned, like first grade men. Like, can you imagine going and playing against 18-year-olds and going to play against Joe Hargraves, for example? That's a huge step up. And then the next week after, you got to play against Payne Haas. Like, cheers. But yeah, I feel like David Mawali, come like what 2027 2028, he's only pushing for a blue spot. Very, very good player, and I think if the Knights can snap him up, it'd be a really, really good signing for them. Then we go over to the Cowboys. Now I didn't want to double up too much. We sort of spoke about him a little bit before, but I went for a different direction with the Titans. But it's going to be Selwyn Cobbo for the Cowboys. Man, what a gun. They've lost some outside backs in Kyle Felton, Valentine Holmes. Obviously, they've got some good guys coming through. That's why they feel like they can let those guys go, like with your Laybut and your Robert Darby and whatnot. But I do think as well, you bring over Selwyn Cobbo, if a guy like your Thomas Duffy or your Jackson Purdue, if they don't work out as your long-term 7, you can push Dearden across to 7, Drinkwater to 6, Selwyn Cobbo to fullback. Them looking pretty good, pretty tidy. They could, like, I guess, like with Reece Robson going, you want to bring in a hooker as well, but there's no real ready-to-go replacement at the moment on the market. I feel like I saw a report saying they're confident with their guys coming through. I'm not exactly sure who that is just yet, in terms of I haven't heard too much about who it is. But so anyway, it sounds like Cowboys confident they've got that sorted. If they play Ruben quarterback, that hooker, they wouldn't do that. But yeah, Selwyn Cobbo to the Cowboys. It's just one of those things that kind of seems right. Stays in Queensland, gets out of the way, away from the media, away from the spotlight, away from the tension, which I feel like he kind of has struggled with so far in his young age. But yeah, I actually, honestly, Selwyn Cobbo to the Cowboys really excites me, and I kind of hope that one goes through. Then we go over to the Parramatta Eels, who, look, ever since they've lost Reid Marnie, that hooker spot has been kind of open. Brendan Hands and Lussick are doing an okay job, but there's definitely room for improvement there. And I've got a guy who has had massive raps on him so far. We've seen a little bit of in first grade, and I feel like, again, he gets better and better the more minutes he gets in first grade. And seemingly, from what I can look at, like with all the signings that Jason Riles has sort of brought in, he's building. He doesn't want to say, like, well, I want to win right now. Like Adokar, I feel like he's brought in to play a similar role to what he did at the Bulldogs, help like build a culture up. Then the other signings like Ayongi and Papali'i are guys they're going to develop into as well. Jack Williams, I think, is only 25, so again, a guy that's going to develop. Blake Moser is the guy I want to talk about for the Eels. A hooker, plenty of potential, a guy that like can develop up through the Jason Riles system, and someone that can see like he's not assigning to win right now. I don't think the Eels are trying to win right now. I feel like they're just, building on that trajectory where they're going to be competitive in 26, 27, 28. And I feel like Blake Moser will be coming to his straps then, and it's going to be a perfect time to sign him right now. If you can, Eels and the board, make a play at him, please. Then we go to Penrith Panthers, where, again, in the similar vein to the Storm and the Bulldogs, I'm going to say I don't see who comes in and makes them better. They've filled the gaps of the players that are leaving. They've got an incredible junior system where they're just like, there'll be guys that we haven't even heard of who in 3 years' time will probably play in Origin. Panthers are just ridiculous, and I haven't got anyone for them available on the market who is going to make them any better. So, there you go. We've got the St. George Illawarra Dragons, where their issues at the moment in their squad are probably with their halves, in terms of they probably lose a bit more quality, and their forward pack, which again, they can use some more quality now. In terms of the halves, like I said before, there's none really available on the market. In terms of their forward pack, they've got a lot of really good youngsters coming through. Like, in terms of like best in the country kind of stuff. And I feel like Dragons hopefully should just lock them down. But again, they're like 19, 20, 21. They're not just ready just yet. And this guy has pretty much been said he can go from his club right now if he finds a suitable club. Dragons could use him right now. I've got Brandon Smith. Now you're thinking, right, what are you talking about? They've got Damien Cook and Jacob Little as their hookers, hooking the rotation. Yes, they do. Brandon Smith, I think, especially with the way the game is played now, it just needs to be playing lock. I feel like just that damaging ball runner does have a bit of a passing game. I just feel like he'd be sensational at the Dragons, or just anywhere in general, to be honest, as a lock forward. If the Dragons could sign him, it just makes their team drastically better. Just get him just trying to focus on footy. He can still live in Sydney, still do all his podcast stuff, and travel down like a lot of these guys do now. At the Dragons, like even you guys, I think Damien Cook might have moved back down to the area, but like Lockie, Ilias, Jaden, so actually, no, Cookies does still live in Sydney. Like these guys, they get together and come down to Wollongong. Yeah, I feel like Brandon Smith would be a great signing for the Dragons, and a guy that I feel like Shane Flanagan would get the best out of. He just simplifies his life, like he's rolling footy, and just say, right, I want you to go out there, and he needs a coach that's going to believe in him. Obviously, Jason Riles, Trent Robinson. That belief has faltered a bit since he's been there, and they're going a different way. So I feel like bring him in now, you probably get him a little bit cheaper because the Roosters don't want him. Pitch in some money for this year, and then move forward from there. And I feel like Brandon Smith would be a great pickup for any club, but it would be nice if the Dragons could pick him up. Then we go over to the Rabbitohs, and again, I think their squad at the moment looks great, but their holes in terms of for the future is. Cody Walker is old. There's no ifs, buts, babies about it. Like he's moving on in age. He's probably got 1 or 2 seasons left. So I feel like the best thing for the Rabbitohs is to bring in a young half with a lot of raps and develop him up so that when Cody Walker has retired, they've got someone ready to go. Because they've brought in a couple of guys, but I'm not too sure they're the guy they're going to be ready to go in a couple of years, if you know what I mean. Guy from the Cowboys who, like, their halfback spot is open. I think there's 3 guys at the moment that are going for it, and one of these guys is Tom Duffy, who I think would be great for the Rabbitohs. Under Wayne Bennett, anyone's going to improve. If you don't improve under Wayne Bennett, then you're just not going to cut it as a first grader. So I feel like Tom Duffy would be a great signing for the Rabbitohs. Just develop him under, like, sort of get used to the system, go play a trade in New South Wales Cup for a couple of seasons, and then just be ready to hit the ground running and just be an absolute star once you do make first grade. So, Rabbitohs fans, let me know what you think about your current squad, but I feel like Thomas Duffy would be a great signing for you guys. Then we go to the Roosters, who, again, like, they're obviously, like, they've let so many players go, so much experience. They're obviously cooking up something. And 5'8" for me is a position at the Roosters at the moment which is available, in a very key position. I know they've got a lot of raps on Sandon Smith, but I feel like you could probably get someone better. A guy who was rumoured to be coming to the NRL for like a couple of years ago from the Super League, but then signed like a massive contract. Then you obviously got to pay a transfer fee and everything to get him out of there. Roosters are a club that would just scoff at that fee and go, yeah, no worries. Jack Wellesby. I would love to see him come over to the NRL and play good footy. And I think in the Rooster system, he'd be great. You can sort of, like, there's so many good attacking players around him, because we've seen sort of Super League halves and spine players come over to the NRL and struggle a little bit. But I think Jack Wellesby would be fine in the Rooster system, where they've got a good 4-pack, good roll-ons, that sort of thing. Like, I feel like Sam Tompkins is a prime example of, like, if he was in a different position rather than the Warriors, probably would have been great. But yeah, I think Jack Wellesby at the Roosters would be great. Other than that, I can see them making a play at Lockie Garvin from 2027 and beyond. Because, yeah, the NRL contract system is stupid. And from November 1 of 2025, they can negotiate with Lockie Garvin if the Tigers are stupid and don't lock him down, which we've seen the Tigers do stuff like that previously. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't know what the Roosters got in store, but I can see him cooking up something absolutely ridiculous. Then we go to the Warriors, and I don't know where you really look at that side and go, all right, I want to get this guy. Like, I don't know exactly where their holes are. They've got a pretty good squad, to be honest, but I have identified a forward on the market who I think would be great. for the Warriors if they brought him over. That'd be Oregon Kafusi. I think he's getting better as he gets older. He's like 26, already played 100 like NRL first grade games in the front row. He's been to a grand final. He's done great. I think he'd be a great acquisition for any side in the NRL, to be honest. I actually think Oregon Kafusi is severely underrated. And with Adam Blake coming to the Sharkies, his minutes probably going to get cut, maybe. I do feel like he'll be starting in the front row with Adam Blake though. But if the Warriors could get him, I think it'd be great. The other guy I've got written down here, which I think would be awesome for the Warriors if you can get him, would be like just throwing the book at Jerome Hughes from 2026 and beyond. Yeah, because his contract, I think he's got what? He's got 2025, 2026 left at his contract at the Storm. Just ask him what he wants and give it to him and bring him over to the Warriors. I think it'd be great. And a guy for Jet Cleary to learn off for the last couple of years of his career for Jet Cleary to take over the mantle. I don't know. Then we go over to the West Tigers where they have recruited brilliantly. Still a few gaps there. And this guy is on the market and I feel like could be available from Cronulla, and that's Ronaldo Mulatalo. Why I feel like he could be available is you've got Sam Stonestreet there, who's a local junior, a good player. It's also got Chris Valia, I think is the way you pronounce his name. Watched him in the New South Wales Cup grand final. Like he's a centre outside back. Bro's a gun. They got to figure out a spot for him somewhere, otherwise he's leaving. And Ronaldo Mulatalo would be great finisher, good carries, really good player, and it means you could push Taruva into the centers where he can get a bit more ball, that sort of thing, or like they've got a few versatile outside backs where you could sort of push them around, and I think Ronaldo Mulatalo could lock down a wing spot for the Tigers and become a club legend there. So there we go. That is a player that I think every single club should be buying heading into the 2025-2026 NRL season. Let me know what you guys think. Have I read your club wrong? Have I gone and signed a player where you don't really need him in your priority areas or somewhere else? You let me know. Name a player that you'd love to sign for your club who's coming off contract. Try to keep it as realistic as possible, and like kept salary cap restrictions, that sort of thing in mind a little bit. But yeah, as I said, like I try to make it so that it was like a different player for every single club. Otherwise, every club's getting sold on Cobbo. You're welcome. If you liked this video, make sure you subscribe for more rugby league content coming in 2025. And yeah, drop a like, a thumbs up, and a comment about who your club should be signing. Thanks, guys.